Alright guys, so we're back for the second part of our video here, and we're actually getting at the guts of the install now. So we're going to pick Graphical Desktop, and the only thing we're going to have checked here is our installation repository. If we picked anything else, we'd actually have to have all of our networking already set up. So we're pretty much good like this. Again, at this point, because this is kind of an important spot, I'm going to go ahead and make sure my capture is turned off. Alt print screen, and you guys should do this more than I'm doing it through this example. And is there anything else here? The other thing, pick customize later. That way the install gets done and we can kind of get into it as we move along. All right, at this point, we're simply going to be stuck waiting for the install to happen. It's checking the dependencies. We might get prompted for one more thing. If I want to, at this point, while it's doing that, I can do the alt print screen again. Come over here. And now our installation process has begun. Um, at this point, in all honesty, you're just stuck waiting. It will give you an idea of what's going on. It's just getting the list of files that it needs to install, and all that stuff kind of poked together. And any second, you'll start to see all of that work out. So the physical files are now actually getting installed on the system. Depending on your processor and what else you got going on your system, this can this process can take anywhere from 5 minutes to a half an hour. I would ask that you take one screenshot of this part. Just one is good. So again, just to remind you, it's you hit Control to make sure the little green light goes out. So the green light's out. I do Alt. I do print screen, and I'm going to come over and we can see what's being installed, at which point I'm going to come back. And what I'll do now is I'm going to just kind of pause our video up until, or I'm going to pause capture up until this process is almost completed, because we don't need to sit and watch a video for 10 or 15 minutes of stuff installing. So I will be back as soon as we got probably 100 things left to go. Excuse me, about 100 applications left to go. Um, I just wanted you guys to be able to see the last little bit of this. The last handful of these, if memory serves me correctly, are pretty small, so it's going to jump from up to the last one or two anyway. Is going to start to move really quick. So all in all, we've been about 20 minutes since we started this install, I think. Might be just a touch over. And all we can really do is wait for the last of this stuff to do its thing. Now, I will let you know one thing that's a little quirky. Remember, I mentioned in one of the posts I made that each different iteration of these operating systems always throw a little bit of a curveball at us. By default, in Fedora 13, both the GNOME and the KDE desktop were installed. Um, in this particular version, so in fact, I think it might have been the same in version 15, the KDE was dropped as one of the default installs. So when you get to 2-4 and you get to the KDE stuff, I'm pretty sure you can kind of skip over that. Um, I'll make sure now once this thing starts up, but I'm almost positive that the KDE desktop didn't get installed by default here. So anytime at all, we should be ready to roll. And it's the very last part of last package get installed. Now, just so you notice what's going on here, you see all this fun blinking? That's just telling you that the virtual hard drive is churning like crazy and it's actually doing writes. So green is read, red is write. Um, if you see this start to do a lot of blinking, that's your network adapter. That means information's coming in and out. When you see this guy start to do stuff, that means that your USB is scanning for things. That's your processor settings. So that just tells you kind of what your processor is set to. And this is a spot where you're able to change your CD or DVD with the machine running, because you won't be able to edit the other part of it that you saw. Now, why is this still churning? So not quite done yet. See, it's got that little bitty bit to go. Funny, this seems a lot longer when you're doing the videos and when you're actually sitting down and kind of just working through it. There we go. So now we're at the post installation portion of what's going on, and we get to install our bootloader, and that's the part that lets us boot up into our system. The bootloader that we're going to use is called Grub. There's other couple of ones that have been used over the years for Linux. Lilo is one. Sometimes you'll see an MBR one as well, which is your master boot record. Now, in all honesty, I was expecting this part to be a little bit quicker. I was expecting it to be in the 2 to 3 minute range instead of 5, but what can you do? Alright, so at this point, it's all said and done. This is a good spot to take a screenshot just to make sure. So again, I know I keep doing this, but I want to make sure you guys are good with it. I turn the light off by hitting the right control button, then I hit Alt and print screen. I come over to my Word document, I hit enter, I do an insert, and that file is there. At this point now I get to do my reboot of my virtual machine, and it usually resizes, and then you see the same things coming up over and over again. Now you see this looks a lot like the virtual machine that I gave you guys to download now, and it actually goes through its boot process. If everything works correctly, you should have something like this happen. If you happen to click these "Don't show me these messages anymore" earlier, I don't think they will at all. It's a system-wide setting. Um, I don't usually worry about it too much. So now we're into what's called the first boot portion of the system. So it's the last part of the install. So here is, I have to resize my screen a little so it'll all fit where I'm capturing. There we go. So it tells us just a typical welcome screen. We continue forward and we just again walk through the basic information here. So forward. It asks us to set a variety of stuff here. If we do, we may want to do this later. Don't worry about it for right now. The synchronizing of the clock, because our network's not turned on. You do want to set the clock and stuff to be the right time. And now you need to add a user. Actually, I'll add Edward B. And I'm going to add them to the administrative group. And I'm going to use Edward B as their password. It's going to hate it, but I'm not worried about that. And you notice it gives me an idea that that's a very weak password. And in a production system, you should never use it. That happens to be what the Edward B password set to on your other thing. Here is the information about what's installed on your computer. Okay, we're not going to bother sending the profile. I should have taken a screenshot of that though. And again, just move the whole thing over. So now we've managed to do our, we've set up our system, we've been able to do our stuff. We have two users, one being the Edward B user, one being the root user. What you want to do now, and obviously you don't have to make it be Edward B, you can make it be whatever you want. Now what you want to do is you want to kind of follow along. So the important part here is in your book it tells you to use Control Alt and things like Control Alt F5 or Control Alt F1. If you do Control Alt F2, oh, hang on now. Control. There we go. Strange. 2. Oh, okay. That's weird. 2 didn't work, but 3 did. Alright, so Control Alt F3 actually does bring you to this text version. Control Alt F2 brings you back. Control Alt F3. Control Alt F1. Control didn't work for F1 in this particular case. So, anyway, if it asks you to be doing something on the terminal setting, it should look like this. Usually that's Control Alt F2 through 6, and then Control Alt F1 is usually the Windows one. For some reason, it's actually not quite that way this time. Anyway, I'm gonna have to run for a second. I'm gonna create one more video in a minute, so be right back.